Settle yourselves in, guys, this will be a long one. So just looking at the recording, this is going to take around an hour. So most of the metallic processes have been detailed before. I will speed this up where I can, where possible, but you will be able to see every brush stroke. So to start with, I am putting down a base layer on all the golds and all the silvers. First, for the golds, I am using Dwarven Gold by Scale 75 and Hull Red from the Vallejo range. So let's speed this up and make sure you see every brush stroke. So for some bizarre reason, I've decided to paint the green of his shoulder pads in at this particular section when I'm halfway through the golds. So I'm using Cabalite Green just as a base layer, 2 to 3 thin coats, just to give us a basis to work from. Let's carry on with the gold, shall we? I think I split it up because doing this amount of gold can be a little bit boring, so in order to break it up I just have the Cabalite Green in between just to keep my own sanity. So let's continue on with adding gold to the gold sections. Okay, let's have a look at the silvers. So after the gold, I'll be placing in the silvers. Again, it's just base layering, so I'll speed up the clips. I'm using Vallejo silver mixed with a touch of dwarf gold, just to add a bit of an oily sheen to it. So now we have the base layers down, let's talk about what we'll do with them. So I like giving the entire miniature a coat of gloss varnish, and then I will oil or use oils on the pieces. So for the metallics, I have used quite a thick mixture. I've added it onto the golds, onto the silvers. For the golds, I've used burnt umber, and then for the silvers I have used a mixture of burnt umber and lamp black. Unlike the pin wash technique, we need this to go on quite thickly and it will stain the underlying layer. And then when we come to do this, removing the paints, we will be using clear thinner just to get rid of those, and any excess paint that exists on top of our golds and silvers. So the next stage, I'm using silver by Vallejo to highlight. Now, if you'd like a reason why, or more of a thorough reasoning why, go back and watch the Custodes videos, which is available. Just look in the tab section of the Patreon page and you'll be able to access all the previous videos that we've produced. So I'm using this as a pre-coat layer in the same way I use white on top of when I'm using normal colours. So we we undercoat the miniature black, highlight with white to give a greater variation of tone to the overall painting process of the miniature. It's exactly the same line of thinking when it comes to this. I'm adding silver on top of the golds to create a more vibrant, higher layer when I do come back with the gold wash on top. Hopefully it's a lot more clearer than I feel like I'm explaining it here. Essentially, the next stage, highlight all the gold portions with silver. Once we've added a highlight to all the golden portions, I'm coming back with my original colour of dwarf gold. You can see how thin it is on my thumb. You need to wash it. we need it to be a wash-like consistency, and I'm rolling this over the entire gold portion, and this should help unify the highlights and the midtones, and then we'll develop the shadow at a later stage. On top of this, we can also use Vallejo Gold, which is a very, very bright white gold colour to highlight the metallics. You can see I'm adding the edge highlight and I'm keeping the line consistent with the rest and the highlighting scheme of the rest of the miniature. Okay, I'll speed the rest of this process up because I am going through the same process of adding this thin wash layer over all the golden portions of the miniature and then re-highlighting with gold by Vallejo. It should be clear where I place the highlights and how I do this, but if any of you do find it a bit difficult following the brushstrokes, please let me know. I still have this video unedited. I could re-edit it again and re-upload it so you can see me painting in real time. Okay, for the for World Breaker, I don't want gold. I want it slightly darker in appearance. So I've used VMC copper, so that's Vallejo model color, VMC copper, with a dash of gold, VMC gold with it as well. So it gives us slightly more of a coppery, richer, redder appearance, and it gives us a variation from the gold on Horus's armour. Okay, the next portion we need to reintroduce some shadows to this. So I'm using Hull Red by Vallejo. And let's get nice and tight in here. So you can see exactly how I manipulate the brush, how I just roll this over the gold to create a shadow, a warmer shadow. So we'll be adding 2 or 3 layers of this just to really punch up the contrast across the entirety of the miniature. Please feel free to follow along where I place my shadows. It is a case of studying where light and shadow naturally falls on the golden portions of the armour and developing it from there. So our understanding of true metallic techniques and non-metallic techniques come into play here, and exactly where to place our shadows. A very helpful tip: take a single strong light source directly from above and take a photograph of the miniature, and you can use that as a guide over where to place your shadows and highlights. It's there, it's all natural, it's all there in front of you, and you can develop the lines yourself from there. So for the skulls on the back of Horus's cloak, I have a bit of a bugbear when it comes to skulls and vials, that I don't think they can really withstand the rigours of battle. If you did have a particularly... if you wanted to have a skull that you wanted to keep around with you for a long time, for whatever reason, you took a particularly impressive skull. This looks like the skulls of kings and emperors and the great and the good of the Great Crusade that he managed to clip during his time as the Faithful War Master. So I imagine he'd have these bronzed rather than just leave them as skulls on a chain. So in order to give that real bronzed patina effect, I'm using blue patina. It is a oil paint from Wilder that I've just added on top, and then with my finger I'm just very lightly rubbing over the top to give that impression that that patina, that blue effect has set in to all the gaps. On top of that, I'm using black gold from scale 75 with a sponge to give a chipped appearance. And that is it for the metallics. I managed to cut the video get down. Again, thank you so much guys for your patronage. It wouldn't be possible without you.